You believe you understand love. You believe loyalty is a choice, a promise made from the heart. But what if I told you that in the moments that matter most, when the world cracks open and survival is on the line, love is not a promise. It is a calculation. Today, we journey into the heart of the 20th century's greatest crisis, not to study the battles of men, but to uncover a silent, brutal war fought in the minds of women. We will peel back the romantic myths of history to reveal a hidden law of human nature, a law so powerful, it rewrites everything you thought you knew about desire, devotion, and the true price of a woman's heart. The year is 1942. The world is burning. For millions of men, life has been stripped down to two things: the fear of death and the dream of her, the girl back home. He carries her face in a faded photograph, tucked against his heart. He imagines her waiting, faithful, her love a single star in a sky blacked out by war. She is his reason. She is the anchor holding him to a world that no longer seems real. This story, the story of the faithful sweetheart, is the bedrock of our romantic mythology. It is a story we tell ourselves to give meaning to sacrifice, to make the horror noble. But beneath this beautiful lie, a different story was being written, a darker one. History, when you look at it without sentiment, reveals that for a staggering number of women, the war was not a time of patient waiting. It was the greatest romantic and strategic opportunity of their lives. To understand this, we must look at a primal drive, an evolutionary imperative hardwired into the human psyche over millennia. The drive to pair with a partner of equal or critically higher status. This is not a moral failing. It is not a social trend. It is a biological law designed to ensure the survival and security of the next generation. In times of peace, this current runs slow and deep, guided by social rules and expectations. But the Second World War was not a time of peace. It was a crucible. It vaporized all the old rules, tore down the structures of society, and unleashed this primal drive with ferocious power. The war didn't invent this instinct. It simply unlocked the cage. Think of the environment on the home front. The local men, the farmers, the clerks, the boys she grew up with were gone, shipped out. Their absence created a void, a deep and palpable anxiety in the hearts of women in their prime. Into this vacuum walked a new kind of man, the soldier, the pilot, the hero. These men were not defined by their old lives. A farmhand from Kansas, once invisible, was now a sergeant in the United States Army. His uniform was a symbol of power, competence, and most importantly, survival. He represented a future that was bigger, safer, and more exciting than a small-town life. He was a bet on the winning side. This was the perfect storm. The quiet, simmering drive for security became a tidal wave of strategic desire. The evidence is not found in poetry, but in cold, hard data. Marriage rates in the United States exploded during the war, but the most telling numbers come from what happened after. The War Brides Act of 1945 was passed to allow the foreign spouses of American servicemen to immigrate. Over 100,000 women came from the United Kingdom alone, tens of thousands more from Australia, France, Italy, and across Europe. This was not a trickle, it was a mass migration. It was women, on a global scale, voting with their feet. They were choosing the victorious American GI over their own countrymen. British government documents from the time reveal a quiet panic. They saw the exodus of their young women not as a story of love, but as a devastating loss to the glamorous, wealthy Americans, whose country was untouched by bombs and starvation. It was a civilizational shift, driven by the silent, individual choices of millions of women. But statistics can feel cold. The true cost of this phenomenon is found in the letters. The National Archives are filled with them, screams of anguish trapped in ink from soldiers who returned home to find their world gone. Imagine a man, let's call him James. He survives the hell of the European theater. He endures unspeakable horror, fueled by the thought of his high school sweetheart Mary. He sends his pay home. He dreams of the house they will build. He returns in 1945, a hero. He walks to her door, his heart pounding with a hope that kept him alive. She opens the door, but she is not alone. Behind her stands another man, an officer, a pilot. His hand rests on her shoulder. She looks at James not with joy but with pity. They were married a month ago. In that single moment, the mental world that James built to survive the war evaporates. The government he fought for calls him a hero. The woman he fought for considers him an obstacle. His status as a simple infantryman was eclipsed by the glamour and perceived safety of a pilot. His sacrifice was a currency she could no longer spend. And this leads us to the dark realization, the uncomfortable truth that sits at the center of this entire story. Most people do not love you. They love the version of you that provides them with security, status, and a feeling of safety. They love how your presence makes them feel about themselves. Loyalty is not a guarantee. It is a constant, ongoing negotiation of value. And when your perceived value falls, the illusion of unconditional love often falls with it. Nowhere was this truth more brutally exposed than in the ashes of the defeated nations. After 1945, in the ruined cities of Germany and Japan, all social contracts were broken. There was no food, no law, no hope. The men of these nations were not just defeated. They were symbols of failure, of shame, of an inability to protect. Their status was less than zero. Into this abyss walked the American occupiers. They were not just soldiers. They were gods. They controlled food, medicine, and life itself. And the women of these nations faced a choice so brutal it strips away all sentiment. The choice was not between a local boy and a handsome pilot. The choice was between aligning with the man who bombed your city or watching your family starve. The term for it was fraternization, a clinical word that hides a universe of desperation and strategic survival. A German woman, walking arm in arm with an American GI through the rubble of her home, was not a traitor. She was a pragmatist. She was making the only rational choice in an irrational world. She was trading the past for a future. Her smile was not the smile of romance, but of relief. She had secured a patron in the New World Order. This is the instinct in its purest, most ruthless form. It is the cold, hard calculus of genetic legacy. The woman who secured a bond with the victor, even if he was the enemy, ensured that her children might have a future, a passport to the winning side. This is not a story to inspire cynicism. It is a story to inspire a radical, empowering awareness. The lesson is not that women are transactional. The lesson is that human nature under pressure is transactional. And to ignore this is to build your life on a foundation of fantasy. For the modern man, this history is not an indictment. It is a map. It shows that your value is not fixed. It is not guaranteed by your past deeds, your good intentions, or your promises. Your value is determined by your present ability to project strength, security, and status. The world is not in flames today, but personal crises are always looming. A job loss, an illness, a failure. In those moments, the same primal laws that govern the choices of the war brides will surface. They are always there, waiting beneath the thin veneer of civilization. The man who understands this is no longer a victim of a fairy tale. He becomes a strategist. He knows his work is never done. He builds his strength, his resources, his mission, not for a woman, but for himself. He constructs a fortress of his own value. A woman may choose to live in that fortress, but she is not the reason it was built. The women of the war were not evil. They were rational players in the oldest game in the world. They teach us a grim but vital lesson. In the theater of life, you are either the one who understands the rules, or you are a pawn moved by forces you refuse to see. The choice is yours. You can stand in the rubble of a broken heart, wondering what you did wrong, or you can become the architect of your own unshakable value. Which truth from this story was the hardest to hear? Tell me in the comments below. Darkness reveals what comfort hides.